First question, how are you feeling coming into Sydney Backyard Ultra?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. So, like any event, really, I've done the preparation. Just doing I guess, as I get closer to it, the final little stages of it, whether it's getting my gear, just processing what I'm going to need for it. But yeah, like feel good. I'm always prepared. So that side of it's all good. And yeah, feeling strong and ready to see, how far I can push myself once again.
Yeah, epic. And obviously you don't have to give away everything, but like talk to us a bit about your game plan for the event. Like how do you kind of come into this mentally?
Yeah. Well, I guess my kind of game plan for things like this is pretty similar to most of the ones I do. I always try to do a bit of visualization. That's what I've done for like a lifetime now, whether it was through the martial arts. I try to visualize like, mass crowds, like the people cheering, that get myself in that atmosphere. So I'm already half prepared mentally. So when it comes about, whether, that's just that aspect, whether it's, cold, whether it's, you're starting to plummet and feeling like crap, then that's the kind of elements I try to get in my mind and how that feels. So then when they come up, it's not such a rude shock. So that kind of stuff, I really work on that aspect. And yeah, just a lot of different elements with the mind that you don't really think of until it comes up. I try to really focus on just those kind of feelings. And that way I'm just mentally prepared from when they come up. And I find that's a really big thing, visualizing what you want to achieve and just understand that you're going to go through ebbs and ups and downs and just try to ride out the wave really. And as it turns out, it's just another backyard ultra for me. I try not to put the pressure on. Like, I know I've got set targets in my brain, but I also know that you can only do what you can do. Sometimes you have goals and targets and you don't reach them, but as long as I know I go out there and give 100%, that's all I care about. So leave everything out there and I don't go home going, oh, I should have done this, that way. That's why it's important to mentally prepare for all outcomes, so to speak.
Sick. And you obviously have like some great competitors coming into this, like people like Phil Gore, your mate James Blanton. What's your sort of take on the field and the competition at this event?
Well, I guess like any event these days, as it's growing so big that there's always seems to be like, there's a couple that are smaller, but these days as it's grown, there's always good athletes in each one. I don't really focus on only what I see on social media, who's in it. I actually don't even know wouldn't know hundreds of the runners that are in there. I only know a couple of the bigger names, like I said, like Phil and James, and I know Jonathan and that from the Australia team. So there are always different people they're in there, like, cool, sweet, they're good athletes. So you know that they're going to be there for the long haul. Other athletes that will help you get to that. So without them, there is no mega number or getting to the targets I want to achieve. So I kind of look at that like that's a positive. They're not my competition. I just look at it more like, sweet, I've got other athletes that are good that can help push me. Like, it's just, for me, it's a war against myself. So that's like with the mindset, like talking that question earlier. I don't focus on what they're doing. I just focus on what I'm doing and just try to mold it all into one.
So well, I guess off of that, would you have a message to anyone who thinks they're going to be the last person standing?
Oh, a message to anyone that I guess is last one standing. That's good to have that. Without the self belief, you're never going to achieve it. So if you don't, truly believe that you're going to pull off something, you're never going to do it. Because when you start breaking, you already got that little mindset, that little doubt in there that's telling you like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe I couldn't do it. So that's part of the visualization and drumming in that mindset. You got to make your mind feel unstoppable. Like, whether or not you get there, like, they definitely need that. It doesn't mean they're going to be the last one standing, but you got to have it, I guess. My biggest thing is try to stay humble and not arrogant if you're going to do that. Like, still at least, have that out there, but don't think for 1 minute that you're definitely better than anyone else, that kind of thing. But yeah, you definitely still need to have backing and self-belief. So
Definitely. And you obviously you fought Muay Thai professionally for a long time. Tell us a bit about how like that background gives you a bit of an edge coming into this sort of an event.
yeah, well, I guess, yeah, through the years of fighting, the mindset had to develop, you know, I had to develop lots of strategies going into big events, and that would be the same principle as getting ready for something like this, with the visualization, knowing the crowd, the big, the hype around you. Like, whether it's, like this, they put the interviews, they put the, you know, little posts up, or, posters or whatever it is that they do to try to make that athlete, bring the name in. And that's part of it. And I just, I guess I just try to, drum that out and just use that as the fuel to just, put the best effort I can do and just focus on just trying to be the best version of myself, and everything kind of molds into itself then. And I don't, you know, you want expectations, but you don't want to go, you just got to be realistically too. You can only do what your body can do. And as long as you give everything, that's the main thing I find. So,
And I think a lot of people want to know what it takes to become an elite in this sport. As an elite yourself, what do you sort of think it does take to become an elite?
well, to become a lead at anything takes a lot of sacrifice and dedication, hard work. I always say it in all my, Instagram stuff. Like, there's no shortcuts. There's no like, oh, I've just started it and I'm going to be, you're the best and you're going to win every event. Like, it's just a long slog of processes of ups and downs. Sometimes you'll reach your target, other times you won't, but it's just that consistency. So like, even if you fail, you got to have that mindset that, right, I didn't get where I wanted to, and be your worst critic, but just then also just look at what you can do to improve it. And it's the person that keeps showing up. Like, all right, you might not be able to go to every event, depends on what your lifestyle is, but keep getting back to that kind of, format or whatever you want to try to be good at. Keep trying to show back up, have another go, and you learn different strategies and different stuff that's going to help you on the next time. Like, most people learn off their mistakes. You don't try to do the same things over and over. And sometimes you might fail a couple of times, but it's just that hard work. That's what turns a lot of people off at a higher level, is because it sucks. It's like, it gets brutal, like day in, day out. Everyone works, everyone's got family, everyone's got stuff that goes on. It's just that relentless pursuit. Like, how bad do you want to achieve what you want to do? And, I made a promise to myself a long time ago that I had a lifetime of doing other stuff, and, even stuff that I wasn't necessarily happy with what I was, the path I was going on in life. And I just made a promise to myself, right, for me personally, it was like, I'm going to see how far I can take this if I put everything on the table. And that's what just started the spark. And then I started finding out, like, I never in my wildest dreams, if I rewind to the start of my ultra career, whether I'd pull off this kind of stuff that I've been doing. I thought I'd maybe able to do a 100K run. And then, you build that belief and that systems. And then you start realizing that the limits you put on yourself are only like, just touching the surface. And I guess that's my biggest advice. Like that, you got to understand that it's a process. Like, there's no shortcuts. It's hard work, and you just got to stay consistent and keep chipping away at your craft, I guess, and eventually you become a master or get better at it.
100%. And you and James Blanton are known for training together and doing some pretty crazy training blocks. What do you take from him during those training blocks?
I guess with our training blocks that we do, we always talk about, what we want to do and what we're kind of working towards. And we both know that it takes, like I said, with the training beforehand, it's hard work, dedication, and it's doing, those relentless kind of sessions and different, whether you're doing multiple events and using that as your training, you got to, you find elements that are going to simulate the kind of thing you're trying to put yourself through. And that's, whatever sport you're doing has different kind of protocols and systems you got to do in place to do that. But I guess with me and James, we try to start, you want to run for days. So 24 hours has to be just like a bare minimum. You kind of think, if you're not used to you want to do hard things for 24 hours, and, depends on what race you're training for, whether it's elevation or whatnot. But I guess the love I see with James as well is that he has that same mindset, knowing what it takes. And it's just good to have I've got a couple of mates like that, not too many, but it's good to have other people that are willing to push and be above and beyond just in a training. Like, most people just won't dedicate that amount of time just for a training block. They're like, oh, I'll do a 6-hour stint or whatever it is. But just to know someone's got that same mind and understanding on what it takes. So, and we got that good brotherhood that it's just like pretty much family. So that's another good aspect as well. So we gel, we know each other pretty well. So that makes it another added bonus, I guess.
It's beautiful to see. Chris Turnbull is running his first backyard ultra tomorrow. If you aren't sure of who he is, he currently holds the fastest record of running from Perth to Sydney.
Yeah.
What piece of advice would you give him running his first backyard ultra?
Yeah, I did see his name pop up I actually don't know who he is. Sorry about that, but I did read that he ran from. That's great, and that's exactly like what we're talking about with the formula. That you need to get used to doing hard stuff. He's obviously done. That's a fair. I don't know how many kilometers that is, if that's a fair distance. So that meant he would have put himself through mentally tough situations that suck. So he's that's going to play into a big part with him. I guess my biggest advice is to anyone that hasn't done them, that might be because I see it in every event I go into. They've got the endurance, like they're great athletes, whether it's a 100K runner or a 100-mile runner or whatever they do. But the backyard ultra is different as well. You've got to be prepared for, the sleep aspect as well, like, minimum sleep and, running off nothing that, and every 24 hours you're doing 100 miles. So I don't know, like there's multiple different advice I can give. I guess my biggest one is pretty much never underestimate it. It's one of those things, like they always say, it's easy to it's not, and it will come up. Like all of a sudden, like, oh, this isn't too bad. I can do, you might be 15, 20 hours in, like, yeah, I can definitely do 48. And then all of a sudden you hit 30 hours and you just feels like you've been run over by a car, like you just can't believe it. So you prepare for all outcomes and, make no mistake that it'll be tougher than you think, I guess. So there's other aspects, but that's probably the biggest thing is never underestimate how hard it really will be at times.
Wisdom in that. With 500 people running at this year's Sydney Backyard Ultra, does that sense of community excite you?
Yeah, that's great. Like that's a huge number. I've done ridiculous amounts of these now, lost kind of count, but this will be definitely my biggest with the amount of competitors that are in there. So that'll be massive, big hype, and it'll be definitely a good atmosphere. So I know that you're saying, after the first 24 hours, you'll lose half of them again like you do, but it'll definitely for the first 24 hours, it might make that time go a bit quicker as well. So a lot of people to chat to and meet, and I'm sure there's, hundreds of great runners with, good stories and where they come from. And it's just good to see other people out there willing to have a crack and see how far they can push themselves. So.
And having been in this sport for quite a while, talk to us a bit about how the sport has grown over the past few years.
Yeah, well, the backyard ultras, I guess, over the last few years, they've grown, massively. Like even from when I first went in, and my first event, I rocked up with just a camp chair and an esky, and I only wanted to do 100 miles, and that was my goal, and just got that, and then I packed up and went home, and I had no idea about gazebos and things like that. There was a few runners that did that, but back then it was nowhere near the setups that they have nowadays. So it's, evolved massively with that. And I think the start to finish races have always been around for a lot of years and stuff like that. And I guess as the, each year grows, there's more of them coming about. But with the backyard ultras, I think it's drawing, and that's getting bigger in because, a lot of different abilities can do it. You can just get people that go, oh, I'm just going to run 5 laps or whatever. And they can come in and enjoy be around all elite athletes, and then also just sit back and watch it. Or if they're local, they can go home, come back, and, it just brings in a lot more atmosphere for people that might not necessarily be able to do a big number, but they've got the opportunity to give it a go. And that's what I think different, sometimes when you set yourself, like if you're doing a 100K race or a 100-mile race, you got to still try to run 100 miles, and it probably puts people off sometimes, signing up for that event. So they go for the smaller events that they know they can do. Whereas this one gives you that, it's a slower pace. So it gives people an option and an opportunity for them to be able to run a bigger distance than they probably would sign up to in a normal event.
And what does winning mean to you? Like, how would you define winning?
Well, I guess winning is just a bit of the icing on the cake for the hard work you've done, I guess. Like it's, over the years of different sports and different things that I have done, like with the Muay Thai, I guess, winning was always one of my major goals, because to me, losing meant, you got hit more, because otherwise you would have won. So I always wanted to make sure I won, because in my brain, that added up is like, at least I'm not getting hit as much. So I definitely want to win. But as I've grown through the ultra running, I was still competitive. I still like trying to see what I can pull off and still try to, whatever it is, win and that. But yeah, these days winning is like nothing for me. Like it's just another trophy, another, it's an icing on the cake. Don't get me wrong. Like you get the end result, like, oh, sweet. All that hard work paid off to show that, the amount of sacrifice and hard work you've done over the years. It's good to see that it has paid off, and you've been the last one standing, or you've won a 100-mile race or whatever it is. That's good. But my main thing, I'm a winner if I show up, and if I give everything I've got and put it, all on the line, I've already won. Like, I've already won now, because I know I'm here and I know that I'm going to go out and give 100%. So that to me, that's already the win. As long as I know that I don't leave this place today or tomorrow, whenever it starts like that I've just given everything, and then I'm already a winner. So
that is so beautiful, man. And finally, this is a gift from the race directors.
All right, thank you.
New merch. Are we able to get a bit of a look?
Yeah, nice. Bucket hats, they're always good. Sweet. I've got me Sahara hats I like wearing and that, but I'll probably still chuck this on here and there. The shirts.
Yeah.
They're nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I'll just go.